So, hello, I'd like to welcome Jacqui Taaffe to our ONUS Q&A series. Jacqui is a life mindset coach, a volunteer bereavement coach, and an Amazon best-selling author of the book Inspire, Heal, and Empower. It's wonderful to have you, Jacqui.
Wonderful to have you, Rita, and to
Thank
be here
you.
together.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Jacqui, I believe there's a really deep personal story behind you writing this book, and I would love for you to share some of your story behind the reason why you wrote this. If you could just give us a bit of that background, that would be really great.
So this book that you have, that I have here behind me, and the soul painting, that's the cover, because it's
fantastic.
This book was really only starting to become a book this time last year.
Right.
But it is a true story of an event that happened to me 37 years ago, this October the 23rd coming.
That's a long time to be carrying something, isn't it?
It is. And I suppose when you mentioned that I may have carried it, but even though I carried it, parts of it was nicely tucked away and compartmentalized until such a time where I was able to do what I've actually done, which was to write the book and to really notice, since writing the book last year and launching it on the 18th of February this year, how my voice has become more empowered. And yet I would have been quite vocal and I would speak, but what I've noticed is a huge freedom.
Right.
And a sense of infinite well-being, having gone through the process of writing the book, because the book was initially journal entries and it was reflections, because I, as a child of 15 years of age, went in to have an eye operation, and within 2 hours of admittance to the hospital, what I assumed presented in front of me was a doctor who proceeded to tell me he was going to examine me, and I assumed it was my eye. But when he pulled the curtains, he then proceeded to say that he wanted to do an internal examination on me. And I always remember in that moment, even though I was only 15, I said, I don't understand what that has to do with my eye. And he just said, it has to be done. He then proceeded to do that examination and also a breast check at the same time. Now, that in itself now is so clear to me that that was so wrong, that those two examinations would not have happened simultaneously.
Absolutely.
But it's only on reflection, and it's only probably in the last 8 or 9 years when I started to really dig in and do work on myself, personal work on myself, and meeting a lady here I'm from Ireland, and meeting a lady from Drogheda who had established a fabulous agency called the Dignity for Patients, who they are advocates for people who have undergone inappropriate medical examinations, as I call it, in medical or hospital settings. And
so there's obviously quite a few people who have gone through and experienced what you have, for someone to have set up an organization around it.
Well, I do believe that the numbers, we don't really have a clue how big it is.
Yes.
That is my good feeling. And the Dignity for Patients have done amazing work. And if you check them out, you'll see what they've done so far in bringing people to justice for this. But separate to that, my work with Bernadette supported me through the certain phases. And then with the training I've had, now I can say that the book was going to be inevitable. The book, this was one of the biggest obstacles in my way from me stepping into who I truly was. What I didn't understand and realize was at the age of 15, I got totally redirected. A part of me shut off from the shock of what had occurred. And yet I had a very successful life. I have a 25-year career in the community sector, working with people, progressing, developing them.
Right.
But I really feel through the process of the book and the publishing of it and the sharing of my story, being able to break the silence. And as I say on the book, trusting my deep knowing that what had occurred that day was fundamentally wrong. And I'd never let go of that belief that was wrong. Why did I feel the way I felt? It just felt at the very core of me wrong. And
Right.
I never let that go. And that 15-year-old me never allowed me to let it go either. And really what we've done, me and her, and I talk about this in the book, is we've come together and I walk together, and I am her greatest advocate. I am her voice now. I can now articulate
That's
what
fantastic.
it was she tried to describe on that day, what she tried to do on that day. And she did her best. And I've come and I've described the whole journey. And what I've done is I've put in journal entries, and I've created images that had come to me through the emotions and the horrible feelings and the residue that was left from that day and the shame that carries that. And that's now in an image. And also I have images around the nightmare, whereby I had a nightmare of a distinctive eye image being sliced. And that really was the invasion of what had been done to me. On reflection now, knowing what I know and the training that I have.
Yes.
And I write poems as well, which I didn't know. So they're in the book. And it's a beautiful book. It's an honest book. It's a raw book, but it's an empowering book. And I truly believe that I had no other choice but share the story. Because if I felt, when I asked myself the question, like, do I keep this private? Do I keep it just to give to my daughter? That feeling of the horror to not share, to not become more vocal, to say, look, this happened and this is not right. And, you know, there may be many out there that may benefit from reading my journey and saying, oh, and taking whatever they need from the book. So the book is for that purpose. It is for the reader. And
it sounds like it was, writing the book was actually like therapy for you. Instead of, I don't know whether did you go to therapy for this, or do you feel that everything came out and you healed this part of yourself by actually writing the book? Had you gone to therapy before, or was it mainly through the book that you found this new voice?
There's a combination of stuff going on. There's now, I can only say to you now, without a doubt, that book is just pages of healing. I can say that now.
Beautiful.
I couldn't have said that to you in September. Yeah. The book had to be completed. It had to be, it had to be as it is. And I've always felt, as I've gone through this process, I've totally trusted listening to my intuitive side, which has guided me to do it. So I feel this is very special. This book holds a special energy. And yes, that is the process, that this book had to be written. That's how I feel about it. And it's not mine anymore. That's I felt when it was done, it was ready to leave me and to go to find whoever it is that needs to read it. But separate to therapy, yes, I would have done, because I'm a coach and a bereavement counsellor, and I'm soon to be a hypnotherapist. I would have supervision. I would have coaching. I think everybody should have a coach in their life, because I think it's one of the best things we can do is conversations and just get new ways of looking and seeing things. And so, you know, I would have supervision. And then, yes, I would have dealt with a counsellor through the Rape Crisis Centre, and I would work with her. So I love doing work on me, because that makes me strong and that makes me healthy. And it's okay to have all of these supports for yourself.
That's right.
And that's my message to people. Just, you know, it's okay, because you become usually empowered, usually productive. And why not?
So do you find that, do you think out of all your whole personal journey of what's happened to you and how you've lived your life, that the book would be your greatest achievement in standing in your own power? Like what would be one thing that you feel that you've done to help you stand in your own power now, and talk about your story, try, put it out there for other people, empower? Is it the book? Do you feel that the book is it that helps you stand in your own power?
I've said this on a couple of interviews I've done. It's very hard to describe and to put even a word on it, but I'll try
Yes,
and put a word on it to best describe what it has given me. And even to use this word is undervaluing the sense or the feeling that I have got, and that is this feeling of infinite well-being,
that's fantastic. That's
calm,
fantastic.
peace, just me, and I'm okay with me.
So you've come
And
back to yourself.
yeah, and yet I
Beautiful.
didn't realize I was ever away. But yet,
I
by
don't think you
taking
do
this,
when you're going through that process, until you start doing what you've done, where you've worked on yourself, you've written this amazing book. I don't think sometimes we realize that sometimes we separate from ourselves, and then when we do this, we actually feel like we're whole, we've come back to ourselves, and that's where sometimes we get that sense of power from, not power externally, but that beautiful internal power where we're not afraid to stand up for ourselves. And it sounds like,
yeah,
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 absolutely. And in the book, I go around the coping strategies or the suit of armor that I
right,
took on at that moment to protect myself for the 15-year-old to go on to function, to have her life. And I got into a few of the coping mechanisms I used in the book, how I did that, and how I became an advocate for so many people. But
yes,
now is my time. I am my advocate for my 15-year-old self. And it's just hugely freeing. And it's
yes,
wonderful. And I think the book is beautiful. And I just want the book to get to as many people as possible. And I would love the book to go to therapists, whereby they could give it to clients and let them see my journey. And they may see some of themselves in that, or they may not. But take pieces of it that you so wish that may benefit you. That's what it's about.
absolutely,
And to think that I would not share it was horrific. To
yes,
think that I would, eventually go through my life, die, and never say this had occurred to me, or that, to share was just not it wasn't an option anymore. My heart was that strong and go, no, you've got to do this, Jacqui. This is, you have to do this.
absolutely.
Not
Well,
yours.
the great Dr. Wayne Dwyer would always say, don't let your story die with you. Don't let your story die with you. So it's fantastic. It takes such courage to actually acknowledge that something's happened, do something about it. You've written a book about it. Now you're helping people. I mean, people can, like you say, benefit from this book. They don't have to relate to the exact situation, but they can benefit from learning how you were able to step up and speak up about your situation, your journey, what your life event, and how it has empowered you to feel so much stronger within yourself. I mean, so many people need to hear that and need to read that. I feel. And so I think it's amazing what you've done. You know, what would you say to someone who has gone through or is going through a similar situation as you did, who may have had a professional who we are taught to trust? We put all our trust, like yourself as a 15-year-old, you would just naturally trust a doctor, because we are so conditioned that if it's a doctor or a lawyer or someone like that, well, you must automatically trust them. So what would you just say to someone who has gone through a similar situation and maybe they're still struggling?
Well, you see, it's interesting because, as you say, we're programmed to trust, or we're programmed to trust certain people and roles that,
Certain people,
there's
yeah.
an assumption that when they appear, that they will act in the way and manner which, that they're meant to act in.
Yes.
But yet, you know, for me, and I can only speak for me, when it happened to me, I instinctively knew it was wrong. Like I knew it was wrong. There was something not right about it. And uh, what added extra confusion to it is the fact that they are presenting as a professional, as a medical person. They're not someone on the street who comes up and sexually assaults you.
That's right.
Because that's what they did. Let's name it for what it is. You know, like I use beautiful language around this inappropriate medical examination. That's what a beautiful way to package that up for me to cope with it over the years. But it was a sexual assault, and it was a sexual assault on a child. So there was layers on top of that with confusion around why was I reacting or responding in that way? You know, it was only an examination. What's wrong, Jacqui? And yet this part of me that knows instinctively what's right and wrong knew it was wrong. So what I would say to anybody that's going through a similar experience, the likelihood is that they have that same conviction as I have, that they knew in their very heart and core that this was wrong. And I would say to them, you trust that deep knowing. And if I was to say one word to them, and I put it in the toolkit, nothing, not one thing on that day that happened to me belonged to me. They came in and they interrupted me in my life journey, in my life path. So I have a great tool. I gave it up and I gave it back to who it belonged to. And I gave it back to him because I give him no credit for where I am and what I am doing. And the book gives him no credit. And it shouldn't, because the book is for the readers and around my personal journey and how I have overcome it and how I've really empowered myself. And it's that message that I want to bring to everybody. And I want to try and reach as far a place as I can, which is beautiful because I'm talking to you today.
Yes, I know. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And that's the beauty of this. You know, so many people, you know, need to hear these messages. And, you know, yours is a great one. You know, like if you were to give, and that's like, what would you just say to someone else? But I'm always fascinated, you know, when we do therapy, we go back in time and, you know, I'd be really curious, what would you say now to that 15-year-old? What advice could you give her, or what would you like to say to her? You know, if you could go back, if you could say something to her, what would you say?
Well, that's in the book.
Ah,
I tell her that.
yeah, fantastic.
It's in the book. And,
so people have to read the book to find out.
Well, but like, you know, wasn't she amazing? Wasn't she amazing to think, you know, at 15 years of age, that mindset, your mind, where is your mind at 15? I really think about that. I look, because I have a daughter coming to a similar age, and what did I know? You know, what it was 1984, and how brilliant she was with what she knew to take the pieces of what happened to her and how she got on with it. So
Yes.
I love her and I embrace her and I walk this road with her. Fantastic. And that's why the back of the book, the cover is my 15-year-old self and me on the back of the book. So it's really important to embrace that child and to love that child. Or if you're an adult and it happens, you love yourself. It's that part of you. You didn't ask for any of it.
That's right.
Not one part of it.
That's right.
And it's usually empowering just to give it back because it doesn't belong.
Yes, absolutely. And even though some people, they may look at your book and think it may visually look like it's directed more towards women, but I'm sure that the message is just as powerful for men as well, because I'm sure there's men that have been in this sort of situation as well, like young boys, etc., who could benefit from your story as well, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, the book is written for me. I was 15-year-old, I was a minor, I was a young girl, yes, and I had an internal examination and a breast check. But absolutely, there's nothing to say that people that men or young boys who have undergone something similar, they wouldn't benefit from the book. Absolutely, yeah. No, that wouldn't even have come into my consideration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just some people may look at it and think, oh, you know, it may be directed for women, but absolutely not, because after these situations happen to a female or a male, it's all about regaining that trust in yourself, that your voice, your power, your advocacy,
Yeah.
to sort of find that voice to advocate for yourself, I find is one of the greatest things that you can do, because
Well, on reflection, Rita, and looking back, what's incredible is how compliant I was with
it's,
the silence.
yeah,
And by breaking that silence, by saying, you know what, this happened to me. And you know what, that's okay. Because I personally have nothing to hide or to be ashamed of, because it all belongs to them. That is hugely empowering.
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's fantastic. And as a mindset coach, do you now, with your clients, take a lot of this learning and this empowerment and advocacy and standing up and speaking your truth? And is that what you've built into your coaching as well with your clients?
I just love coaching. I just love working with people. I love to see that shift happen within them. So it's incredible, the work.
Yeah,
It's, yourself. It's magical. It's such a gift. It's such a privilege when somebody decides to come and do the work that they do with you, because that
that's
takes
right.
courage and that takes bravery, because that's honest, raw conversations. But within those honest and raw conversations comes that magic.
That
And
happens.
I,
Yeah.
you know, to sit and work with a client, and for that client to leave you, and to have, and you see it, you see that shift when they just go, oh,
That
oh,
light bulb moment.
yeah.
That
And
like
it's
when they see the glow, their eyes start to sparkle when all of a sudden they that shift happens. Yeah,
yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah, and to put that light back on for them, to
Yes,
be part of that, just to be able to sit and facilitate that for them, because that's all
yes,
I am. I'm a facilitator or a guide, as in, and because I know, and because I've done this myself, yeah, I just absolutely love it. And yeah, it's wonderful to be able to do this work.
yes, absolutely. It's
Mm.
brilliant what you do, and the world needs it. The world needs what you do, and the world needs to read your book. And I'm so glad that we've been here to be able to help you do that and to be able to share your message. I mean, it's a really important one, and I love it because it's not just a message. Just to finish this off, it's not just a message about, oh, this is my story, this is what happened to me, and I would just want people to know it. It really is a story about helping people have that confidence, or that understanding that you are your best advocate. No
Mm.
one else. I love it. That's what my business is based on people learning to become their best advocate and find the best solution for themselves. And that's what whether you do it through a coach or whether you do it through a fabulous book like this, um, that is one of the most is empowering things people can do, stepping into their power. It's
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
must say it's been, I feel disappointed we have to sort of stop here, but I think that there's another interview in this, and I'd love to continue. Would love to sort of tap in more into your coaching and what you do there and how you help people. But definitely, I'd like to tell everyone that you can connect with Jacqui by downloading the ONUS app. Jacqui's there, and you'll find the ONUS app on the Apple and Google Play Store. So please download, connect with Jacqui. You can book in with Jacqui there, and you can find links to her book. So, Jacqui, it has been an amazing pleasure, and
yeah,
I totally inspired by what you've done, this book, the courage of writing it, and your whole journey has been an inspiration. And I'm so happy that we've had this opportunity to chat.
yeah, and I absolutely loved it. And yes, I'd love to come back and we'll
Yeah,
talk again.
yes, we must, around definitely around your coaching. I think letting people know more about what you do is going to be a fantastic thing.
Lovely, Rita. Thanks
Okay,
for having me.
thank you so much, Jacqui.
Thank you.